Really exciting news today. We are going to pick up a motorcycle because one motorcycle company sent me an email yesterday, and on really short notice I get to pick up a really cool bike. So let's make our way 300 kilometers to the Ruhrpott. We're not in the Ruhrpott for the beautiful Rivers Industrial Complex, but for the Guerrilla 450 from Royal Enfield. The most modern bike Royal Enfield has ever made up to this day, and I'm really curious about this machine because I think it's a really direction-giving machine. If you think of Royal Enfield, you usually think of the Interceptor 650 and bikes like that, which is like a version of the old British roadsters. And this is now a modern roadster. So what is this going to be like? They already made a more modern bike with the Himalayan 450 that was developed alongside. And I gotta say, they committed here more. And I'm really curious how this package is going to look like. So let's see how my first impression with no prior influences on the open road. Let's go. With the Guerrilla 450 having a DFT dash on a Royal Enfield, let's sign up to the Royal Enfield app and connect to the bike to use the navigation feature for over 200 kilometers of highway riding. The fuel capacity of 11 liters is relatively small, but it keeps the weight down, and I still managed to reach around 280 kilometers on one tank.
After having spent all this time on the highway, I'm pleasantly surprised by how the Royal Enfield Guerrilla 450 handles. Like, I was always really amazed by the frames, like of the Meteor, that is also like similar to the frame of the Hunter, but like the engine was typical Royal Enfield, you know, it was like nice and characterful, but and also like nice and torquey, but power-wise when it got up in the revs, usually not a lot going on. And that's a stark contrast here, because once you get going here, the bike really has some punch, but like it's not really sacrificing really its lower end grunt, which in this kind of setup is like a lot more feelable than in the Himalayan, because it's not an adventure bike at the end of the day, it's really a roadster. And to that name it does all honor.
The new Sherpa one-cylinder liquid-cooled engine has relatively modest power output. However, the throttle response is quite instant, and also all the torque is down low in the rev range. It seems like performance is not necessarily at the forefront, but fun definitely is. Let's talk about my first impression of the visuals of this machine. Because the bike isn't just a lot more modern from how it rides for the typical Royal Enfield experience, it also really looks different. You could now say it's a neo-retro bike, but I would disagree. It kind of isn't. Yes, it has a front round headlight, but a Royal Enfield without that would be a really far stretch. But apart from, if you want to consider a round headlight a retro design element, the bike looks really modern. I think it's even the first asymmetrical design that Royal Enfield ever did. Yes, they at some point maybe had like a dash off to the side, but you really have here a nice clean line with the dash on the one side and the opening for the fuel tank, which looks really nice and gives the tank a really nice optics, I have to say. Also with the tank being relatively wide on the bike. The modern styling cues don't just end there. The front headlight looks a lot different, with kind of like a half housing and like it being open, so you can take off this front part here, which is something I have not really seen on another bike yet, but I like that they went creative. Like, if they do something modern, which is untypical for Royal Enfield, at least properly pull through with it. I really love the old school bikes of Royal Enfield, but I really like that here, if they now choose the modern direction, that they really went for it. Really often the problem with modern designs is that they really like to be really flat and uncharacterful. Think of the typical corporate office space, or how an IKEA looks from the inside and anything you can buy in it. And when I first saw the Himalayan 450, I was kind of scared of Royal Enfield potentially developing into that direction with more modern bikes. Luckily, it's different here, and also the bike comes in not like boring colors like gray, black, and like a few other ones. No, you have flashy, nice, different paint jobs. This is now the Playa Black, wild name for a paint job because like it's Playa with YA at the end. I don't think they mean playa in the sense of beach, because beach and black don't really go well together. Really cool. And there's another color option that I sadly now don't have, and that's a color option that is dark purple with dark purple rims and yellow. And I think that has never been done on a bike since like the 1990s on the KLE. So I'm really happy to see paint jobs like that coming back, because for me that made all the other models of Royal Enfield really special, was the big variety of very wild paint jobs. And I'm very happy that they also bring that to basically the first proper modern designed bike that they're making. It was one of my biggest worry points. Enough talk about my visual impression of the bike. Let's get this beautiful machine home.
You say I should journal every day, but I don't. You say if I write things down, then I'll know myself better, but I probably won't. I know that there is something I should do to be a healthy human. That's what I wanna do, but I don't think I know how. Can you show me? Can you show me? I promise I'll listen.
And we arrived home in the natural habitat of the Guerrilla 450, the urban jungle. The Guerrilla 450 has a really small and nimble rear end that you don't need to worry about when filtering through traffic, and enough torque on tap to accelerate from stoplight to stoplight. In general, the Guerrilla feels really good in this typical riding your motorcycle late at night through your hometown kind of feel. It feels really amazing. Few motorcycles show the conundrum of motorcycle character so well like the Guerrilla 450, with us being in the process of a big shift in motorcycle riding and mobility as a whole, and consumers on the one hand saying everything was better back in the day while having a cock-off on whose DFT dash is actually bigger. Going to sleep that night, the thought of what even is motorcycle character was not really leaving me. Truth be told, my most characterful riding experience is a 600 from the 1980s I got for $600 when I was 19 and was riding like a lunatic. This example really proves that motorcycle character per se is not real. It's the lifelike features we attribute to a lifeless, inanimate object. However, doesn't us believing in it make it kinda real? The Guerrilla 450 doesn't allow for the typical Steve McQueen, James Dean cosplay on your way to the local coffee shop. But how much do the ideals of cool mean to young riders who don't even know who these people are potentially? However, it definitely has a few little quirks that make it feel lifelike. However, one thing I can already say for certain, a bike that comes in at a price of 5,200 euros roughly will always have plenty more character than a retro bike that is so expensive that the owner is scared of properly using it. I consciously decided to keep most of the technical specs out of the first video to have it basically completely vibes and feels based. There are more videos and a review coming on the Guerrilla, and definitely feel free to ask me any kinds of questions about the bike in the comments.